Okay, so my wife and I moved to Nashville last summer and bought a house in a nice, trendy area. The area has all the fixings. Coffee shops, hipsters, obligatory Black Lives Matter signs. Houses like this next to houses like this. The other sign that covers all of your bases in case the Black Lives Matter sign isn't enough. It's in a nice, young part of town. But as I look around, I've been plagued by a nagging question. Am I a gentrifier? I don't like this idea that I am a part of the problem. So to get an answer to this question, I reached out to Dr. Nishani Frazier. She's Associate Professor of History and American Studies at the University of Kansas and completed her PhD in History at Columbia University. Am I a gentrifier?
That would be rude. How much did you pay for it?
We paid $dollars for the house. I'm Garrison, and this is Subtext. Okay, before we answer that big question, it feels important to define gentrification. Headlines are everywhere saying that it's a problem in places like New York and DC and San Francisco, but it's difficult to find one unified definition of gentrification. And that's because it's kind of an imprecise, hard to nail down phenomenon. But Dr. Frazier defines it this way.
Right. Gentrification effectively is defined as the process of a higher value, a higher income residents coming into a community and changing the character of that community.
And I guess another question is gentrification even bad?
It always ends up in displacement, which is why no matter how you slice it, gentrification is bad.
We can't have a serious conversation about gentrification without also talking about race and racism and the long history of race-based policies that have shaped where people live.
Right. So I understand that there's entities that have put out pieces that say maybe gentrification is not bad. Well, that's from the person who ain't got their ass kicked out. That is not for the person who is able to remain in the space.
For many, gentrification feels like an inevitability. But Dr. Frazier explained to me that gentrification is much less about free market forces and much more about decisions made by your local government.
Changing the park. Changing the schools, sidewalks, signage. I can go down the line, new trees, all indicators that the city is pushing, right, a new change and transformation in a community. That's when you know gentrification is coming, and not one person has showed up to buy a house yet. But you know it's coming because the city has made decisions about what they're going to do to improve a space. And look for wording also. Historic East Durham.
Which in many ways is where I come in. By the time we bought this house, decisions had already been made to invest in this part of town, thus increasing its desirability. As a result of that increase in desirability, people had already started moving here, thus driving up the price of property. So what I'm saying is that I don't even know if I can be blamed for gentrification in my community. Am I a gentrifier?
That would be rude. How much did you pay for it?
We paid $dollars for the house.
The answer is yes.
No! So Dr. Frazier explained that there are degrees of gentrification and types of gentrifiers.
So let's be clear. There are kind of levels of gentrification, so that we don't sort of make you out to be the devil with a pitchfork, right? The city is the devil with a pitchfork. By the time you come in, you're more along the lines of what's considered an indirect gentrifier, right? So the community is already in the process of gentrification because the city, the universities, developers have already initiated the process. Now, even in this sort of categorization of indirect gentrifier, there's still a difference. Right? If you're that gentrifier that calls the police to harass the hell out of somebody, you're a pitchfork gentrifier, right? Because what you're doing is creating a process that further pushes and dispossess working class people who are in that neighborhood. But you also are seeking to remake the community in an image that is not reflective, right, of the community before you came. And what that means is that you construct the notion of belonging where I am not a part of it.
I think it's safe to say that gentrification is bad. But low-income communities deserve nice things too. Like, how do we revitalize communities without gentrifying them in the process?
When we revitalize, we don't have to displace, which is what effectively gentrification does. There are multiple ways you can revitalize a community. First of all, Winston-Salem has done this, is that they create a kind of city grant or pot for helping residents to repair their home. And so it went through a process of mini beautification. That was at least an effort by the city to say, yes, we need to do something to make our current residents happy, healthy. I can come up with a whole list of things that you can do to stop gentrification. This is about will, not ability. There are multiple solutions out there, some of which is not necessarily as sort of expansively costly as a lot of people like to think.
I think the point is that gentrification is a complicated issue, one with harmful outcomes that will take a lot of intentionality to solve, especially intentionality from your local government. For now, I think the most actionable thing that a person like me, or maybe like you, can do is to avoid being a pitchfork gentrifier.
The way that people participate in gentrification is what really defines what it means to be a gentrifier.
Okay, I think that's a good place to wrap this one. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and you're still around, consider dropping a like and subscribing. I'll be exploring more big questions just like this one and answering those questions through the lens of culture. If you have an idea of which questions I should tackle next, please go ahead and drop them down in the comments below. Okay, that's it for now. Until next time, peace.